You know, dealing with trauma, dealing with loss is so very difficult. Can you talk a little bit about how you can deal with trauma, loss, grief in a healthier way?
So, I always find that when people are dealing with trauma and grief, they just sit with it, and then they start thinking about the loss and they start thinking about the moments they lost, the things that they didn't do or they should have said or they, that they felt like they wanted to get off their chest. And what I always tell people, first thing to do is create space for yourself. Create space, and one of the ways that that I talk about in spirit hacking is creating an ancestor altar. Because when you create an ancestor altar, you are literally remembering your ancestors. And remembering your ancestors is important because in cultural understanding of how we've developed as human beings, we used to be more connected to our ancestors. And then we've gotten so disconnected from our ancestors. And so lighting a candle, like, putting, if your ancestor loved horses, maybe you have a figurine of a horse. If they loved flowers, maybe you put that flowers on it in a picture of them. And you talk to the candle, to them. You speak to them. You say all the things you want to say to them. So you're allowed to be able to create that space. And what's really beautiful about it is that it allows you to have that interaction, that time with your ancestors.
And I think, like Meg, many times when people pass, we're sort of ridden with guilt and regret. So I'm just curious if you had, other than the ancestor altar, other ways people can cope with that.
Yeah, so the other ways is doing actionable causes. So like, for instance, there was this Italian family and the guy lost his mom and she loved to cook pasta. So every time, once a month, they all get together and they make pasta and they honor the memory of his mom and their grandmother. For me, my father loved jazz music. So when he passed, every month I listen to jazz music and I focus on my dad. And see, what happens is in the conscious of human beings is they go, oh, that person's not there anymore. I don't feel connected to them. But you don't feel connected to them because you're not keeping their memories alive. And when you keep their memories alive by doing these little hacks of just spending time doing things that they love. Like if someone really loves animals, perhaps you run a charity that supports animals in honor of your grandmother or your mom or your dad. And so taking actionable causes actually allows you to deal with the grief. And then another thing that's really beautiful is to be able to recognize that when you are dealing with grief, you're dealing with things because you have this idea that grief is set in because you have lost something. You're not a part of it. And so when you're dealing with grief, it's always to remember that you're always a part of them. And so keeping that memory alive allows you to be in that space and you feel better. And when you feel better, you're able to get through it.
And I want to ask Meg, because you actually created an ancestor altar. How did that experience go?
It was magical. I mean, to be able to put, obviously my dad loved baseball, so put a baseball glove with his picture. And the picture on the left is actually the last picture we took together about a month before he passed. And so just to have those candles and, just to sit there in peace and just talk to him, because I have to remember, and a lot of what the shaman helped me with is that he is still here. He is still right in here. And he is always going to be with me. And I don't need to be afraid to just open my mouth and talk to him and tell him that I love him and that I forgive him and that I forgive myself.
Thank you for sharing. And Shaman, as always, we appreciate your insight and your wisdom.
Thank you, Charlie.